Hi, and welcome to my internship presentation. For my internship, I chose to tutor a grade 3 student in mathematics and language arts. In order to create this video and upload it to YouTube, I was asked by the student's parents not to show any of their work and use a false name, in this case John, instead of their real identity. Now we'll start with some background. As a teenager, I was tutored in calculus in grade 12, and while I feel the sessions helped me understand the topic more, and I improved as we moved along, I still struggled on the tests and ultimately had to drop the course, which in my opinion means the tutoring was a failure. Even before starting this program, I always wondered how I would fare as a tutor, randomly doing a few hours on the side here and there to make some money. Now, having learned so much from this program, I wanted to test my ability and see if I could succeed. For my inquiry model, I chose to use the inquiry rule, which you can see on the right here. It has a similar setup to the scientific method, but instead of a hypothesis, a question of wonder is formulated and then tested. Results are then gathered and presented so that the information can be shared and perhaps another form of research can occur down the line. My focus in this case was tutoring a student, and the inquiry question that rose from this was how might a student's behavior/demeanor and academic performance in a classroom change if they have a tutor. From this experience, I hope to better understand how to tutor a grade 3 student in a one-on-one setting and evaluate my ability through qualitative and quantitative results. The qualitative results were based on John's performance in the classroom in terms of how he acted, and the quantitative results were based on John's grades as well as how he did during our sessions. In order to find out both, I interviewed his teacher. To achieve my learning goal, you can also see the success criteria I would need to follow on this slide here. So now that you know a bit about why I chose to do tutoring for my internship and some of the goals I set out to accomplish, I believe it is important to share what kind of research has been done in the field. To my surprise, there weren't many studies that have been completed about adults tutoring students, especially in a one-on-one scenario. Far more studies have been researched about peer tutoring, where universally this process has shown an increase in academic performance across a wide range of ages and subjects. Most studies that have been done in this field occurred in other countries where tutoring holds much more importance. A study in Turkey, for example, looked at the academic performance of students in math and language and found that tutoring helped these students achieve higher grades. Students in Turkey, however, have their high school chosen for them based on passing a difficult test and try and achieve higher grades to get into a better school, unlike in this country. This means that families pay a lot more money to get their kids into tutoring programs, and these tutors have a lot on the line working with the students. A different study focused on the reading ability of incarcerated youth and how that youth increased with tutoring assistance as well. This study did not involve a school setting and had no real fixed timeline because youth would often be transferred to different prisons and pulled out of the program at random times. The field appears to be quite open for research when it comes to my specific topic. For this internship, I believe that the relationship between the number of hours tutored and the ability of the tutor to do their job would have an effect on classroom performance, behavior during class time, and results during sessions. So what did we cover? In order to determine how John was doing in school, I decided to do a diagnostic assessment to start our time together. This covered general questions such as what is your favorite subject, how long do you spend on homework at night, and what is your least favorite thing about school, among others. I also asked him some fairly simple math questions to see the level I was working with, and we read a few books so I could figure out his comprehension and reading abilities. Once I had a better understanding of his abilities, I realized that his reading level and comprehension are quite high when being applied to fairly difficult texts, but he struggles with math questions involving numbers that don't provide him a visual. For math, John's class was covering the use of money, and the first thing we did was create coins for him using a sheet similar to the one in the slide you see here, so that he could have coins to help him with his questions. We then went over some questions involving the addition of two numbers in the tens and numbers in the hundreds that didn't involve money, and I offered him some strategies he could use that might help him to better understand how to do the additions. We did this because it would greatly assist him when needing to add different amounts of money together as we progressed. I also created a store where he was given a certain amount of money to buy comic books as a way to combine the two things we were doing together, which in language he was working with comic books. We had to figure out how much he could spend without going over his amount of money. Throughout our sessions, we also covered questions such as adding two sums of money together, making a grouping of coins to obtain a certain amount of money, and questions on how to make change. For language arts, his class was covering and creating their own comic book pages, so we discussed what parts are important when creating a comic. I showed him some of my comics to provide him with some examples and ideas, and we brainstormed what he might want to do for his few pages. Near the end of our time together, we finished his pages to be submitted in class. After completing our 20 hours, I found that John's academic performance did not increase that much. He received a slightly higher score on his math test than in relation to money than usual, but on his comic culminating, he got a B+, roughly his usual grade. In the classroom, however, it seems as though our sessions had a very positive effect on him. He was participating more in class, fooling around less during instructional time and with his peers during work periods, while also helping others if they had questions. His teacher was quite impressed with the change, and I offered her some ideas to continue to help him succeed at school that I found effective. During our sessions, John was generally well-behaved and focused, but as we progressed, I noticed his ability to answer questions and general performance increased. He needed less help each time we met and was able to figure out more on his own. For the comic, I helped him a lot early on with his ideas, such as building his story, creating a character, but as the comic was being made, he did a lot of the drawings on his own and came up with what he wanted the characters to say. On a personal note, I also improved as we had more sessions, in my opinion. I let go of more things to his control and came up with activities I thought he would enjoy. For the money math, I was able to pick up what we would be covering next relatively well in progression. I would say that one of my placements, we did money math, so that did give me a bit of an advantage there. He is also a very visual learner, as the math manipulatives and store type activity I set up really helped him better understand how to use money. Working one-on-one helped me better understand the student's strengths and weaknesses along with his needs. This helped me plan sessions around helping him better understand the content that was being covered, and perhaps in turn John would enjoy school a bit more. Overall, it seemed that the experience had a positive effect on John, and I believe that if he was being tutored further, that effect would only increase. Thankfully, John's teacher was open to talking with me about how things were going while he was in the classroom during his tutoring time, and was willing to work with me in the future to help John try and get better grades. Finally, John and I got along quite well, and I got to know him very quickly, which meant we were able to work together well. Some weaknesses of the process that I found, scheduling sessions was a bit difficult due to my school schedule as well as the family schedule. Because I have classes at different times and travel a long distance, it was difficult to set up consistent sessions. 20 hours is also not enough of a sample size to see if my tutoring had a positive effect, particularly when it came to John's grades. Over that amount of time, he only had one math test and the comic culminating task, which I believe 2 grades isn't enough to make that kind of determination. As an extension of this issue, not all subjects could be covered, so we focused on the 2 that arguably have the most importance day to day in the classroom. I think John's academic performance didn't show much of an increase because there wasn't enough time to create a major shift in his grades. As I said, he was only assessed twice, once in each subject during our time together, and that just isn't enough time to show a drastic improvement. His grades were also at the provincial standard, roughly, so moving up a level wasn't going to be a simple matter. I believe 2 major factors contributed to John being better in the classroom. He was more engaged with the content because of what we were doing during the sessions, and he had a better understanding of what was going on. I think John gets frustrated and stops caring when he doesn't know what to do, which then leads him to lash out or distract others during class. Something I noticed that I struggled with personally was how much editing to do when it came to the writing of John's comic, and in general, how much I should give him to help him expand on his ideas. I believe early on I was too hands-on and instead should have taken a step back so he could have more say. I would say overall I did achieve my learning goal, but perhaps with more time or a better performance, I could have done more to help John succeed. The most important part is that it seems as though he is understanding the content, and as long as that continues, hopefully it means better grades will follow. If I were to do this in the future, I would try and find a way to incorporate a 3rd subject, or maybe even do something with physical activity, because he's not the most active individual. So some further research possibilities. Due to the lack of research in this field, I feel as though a lot could be done in regards to future research. Something like group tutoring with an adult could provide different results. You could take a single tutor with a larger sample size of time, or use different age groups and see what comes of that. Overall, I found this experience quite enlightening and saw the value that tutoring can have for a student to help them in the classroom. It would have been nice to see the effects over a longer period of time, but it appears John is interested in continuing our sessions, which might occur in the new year. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video, and have a great day. And here are just some of the references for images.